Hey guys, it's Katie. Welcome back to my channel. I am so glad you're here and welcome back to Bookmas. Today we're going to be talking about all the books that I want to read in 2025. And just to make things a little bit easier, I picked 25 books. So we're doing my 2025 TBR, but it's my 25 for 2025. I did this video last year for Bookmas and also for 2024. So I did a 24 for 2024. And the video was honestly kind of all over the place. So I ended up making a separate TBR because in the video I made like series and then I had like a ton of extra things and stuff like that. And if I was just being realistic with myself, I wasn't going to end up reading all the things on that list. So this year we are just going to stick to 25 books. And if you've been keeping up with me in my channel and specifically my reading journal journey, these are also the books that are going to be in that reading journal spread for the new year, which I'm so excited about my new reading journal. I haven't started doing it yet, but I think I'm going to start it at the end of the year whenever Bookmas is over because I don't know if I'm going to be posting any more videos for the year. We'll just have to see. So I might just focus on doing that then. But anyways, I'm getting too ahead of myself. Let's go ahead and get into my 25 books that I want to read in 2025. To start out, I ended up picking 10 books off my physical TBR. I think last year I did pick some books that I already had, but I really wasn't focusing on like a certain amount or anything like that. And I felt like 10 was a good amount because there's still some new releases and stuff like that I'm going to want to read next year that I want on the list. And then there's also just a few books that I don't have that I really wanted to read that have come out recently or have been out for a while. So I figured 10 was kind of like a nice sweet spot, and you guys already kind of have a little sneaky peek right here. So we're gonna go ahead and start out with the first one that you can already kind of see. The first book on my 2025 TBR is Tomorrow and Tomorrow and Tomorrow by Miss Gabrielle Zevin. I read The Storied Life of AJ Fikry by her back in like June or July. I know it was then because I was reading it at the pool and I read like the majority of the book in one sitting just at the pool. And oh my gosh, the writing was so like bingeable for me, but it was also just so like different and kind of like unique, like a little bit quirky to be honest. So I don't know if that's how the writing is in this one as well. I really loved that book and its story, and the ending was just so sad, and I just really felt connected to the characters. I really loved them, and it was just such a nice cozy read. It was like a warm hug, honestly. I mean, if a warm hug like makes you cry at the end, I don't really know how that works, but whatever. And since I enjoyed that book so much and I've really been enjoying literary fiction, I've actually had this on my TBR for a while because a lot of people read this, I think like 2-ish years ago. Maybe it was just one because it was like a 2023 Goodreads Choice or a 2022 Goodreads Choice Award winner. It's basically about these two friends who work in like video games and they are collaborating on like a game together, I believe. Obviously, I don't know a lot about it because I haven't read it yet. You'll kind of figure that out as we go throughout this video. And it seems like there's like a little bit of a subplot of romance. I don't know how much of it is in there. It's definitely not a romance book. It's a literary fiction. And I'm really interested. I love books that follow along with a story while also having like a great subplot of romance. So I feel like I would really enjoy this one. I think the reason why I've been putting it off, honestly, is because it looks so big, but it's literally under 400 pages or like exactly 400 pages, which is pretty like usual for the books that I read. So I don't know. I think sometimes hardcovers just like look way bigger than they are. So I'm gonna stop putting this one off and I'm actually gonna hopefully read it in 2025. Next up, we have an author that I feel like is incredibly popular just in general, but has really been overtaking the booktube space as of this past year. And it's a book by Miss Kristen Hanna. And the book I chose was Firefly Lane. I knew I wanted to put at least one of her books on this list just to make sure I get through one in the new year. I have so many that I want to read, and I think I'm already planning on reading one for a video coming up, probably in like January or something. But I have heard amazing things about all of her books. So many people have rated almost all of her books 5-star, which a lot of people cannot say that about a lot of authors. So obviously there must be something she's doing right. My mom loves her. My grandma loves her. My friends that are my age love her. So I feel like I'm going to enjoy this, and I feel like so many people out there would enjoy it too. This is the one that I've had by her on my TBR the longest, so I figured I would pick this one. And this one is basically about a story of friendship throughout the years, and it gives you like major girlhood vibes. And I've heard that it's very touching, but the ending is very sad, but you feel so connected to the characters. And I feel like I would really love this one. I love books about friendship. Happy Place is one of my favorite books, and that book talked a lot about friendship, but it also talked about how whenever you grow up, friendships just change so much over that course of period of time. And so many people go through so many different things, and like the friendship itself has to change because everybody's changing. And there's just like different dynamics as you grow up. And I just found that so interesting because it's such a real thing that everybody goes through. And I related to that plot in the book so much. So I feel like I'm really going to enjoy reading about a plot that's kind of similar in this one too. And I honestly think I'm really gonna love it too. The third book from my physical TBR is One for My Enemy by Olivia Blake. I have been wanting to read an Olivia Blake book for so long. I think last year in my video, I said I wanted to read an Olivia Blake book. I was like, I don't care which one. I just want to read one because I hear so many different thoughts about her books, and I kind of just wanted to figure out if I liked her writing or not. This one specifically follows witch families, which witch. I have been wanting to read books about witches so much recently. I kind of missed the fall and like more like eerie, witchy, maybe like vampire-y reads this year just because I was so busy with my wedding. And I honestly really wish I would have read this one in the fall, but I feel like I could read this one in the winter and still have a good time with it too. But this is an urban fantasy. It's in New York. It follows two rival witch families, and it's like a Romeo and Juliet retelling. So I find that very interesting. I feel like I would absolutely eat that up. I know a lot of people have mixed feelings on this book specifically, but I don't know. I feel like I would really enjoy it. And I want to read more about witches, even though we're out of spooky season. If you have any witchy recommendations that aren't like witchy rom-coms, or you know people who give really good witchy recommendations, let me know down below because I want to start reading more about witches. Think more like Manon Throne of Glass, less like Girl from the X-Hex. Or more like Bonnie Bennett from the Vampire Diaries. Oh my gosh, she eats. Best character in the whole show. The next book I chose was Belladonna by Adeline Grace. I've been hearing so many things about this series, specifically the third book, because I think that it recently came out, maybe like a few months ago or something like that in the year. But so many people that I follow online have rated it 5 stars, specifically on Bookstagram. I've just been hearing so many amazing things about it. And it's kind of like a darker gothic fantasy. I loved One Dark Window by Rachel Gillig, which kind of gives that like eerier, darker gothic vibes. And I don't know much about it other than that. Like I don't really know the plot or anything about it. I love going into fantasy books blind though, because I like being like shocked or like more invested in the plot by not knowing what's going on. Because I think sometimes they give away too much, honestly, on the back of the book. Like I know I have to be like intrigued to read more, I guess, but I feel like they just tell you too much. But one thing I do know about this is that death, like that death is literally a character in this book series. So I feel like that's gonna be interesting or incredibly scary. If you know anything about me, if you've been watching my channel for a while, you will know I am scared of everything. I actually do love a YA murder mystery thriller type moment, but I don't know why I haven't been reading those as much recently. I do want to get back into that era. I have so many on my physical TBR right now that I want to read, but I'm hoping this does not give me the spooks magooks. Yeah, and also, do I need another fantasy series to start? No. But am I going to start it anyways? You betcha. Speaking of fantasy series that I'm going to start, next we have Daughter of the Moon Goddess by Sulin Tan. This is a duology. This is actually the author's debut novel. Honestly, I've heard great things about this. I think I've seen reviews more on TikTok than on like BookTube. But out of all those reviews, I really don't remember what it was about. All I know is this cover is absolutely and utterly stunning. Like whoever did the art on this, oh my gosh. Also, Miss Stephanie Garber has a blurb. She says, a breathtaking debut novel. And we know how I feel about Miss Stephanie Garber. I love her. I'll just read this last little bit because it doesn't really talk about the plot or anything. It just says, Daughter of the Moon Goddess begins an enchanting romantic duology. We love a little romance that weaves ancient Chinese mythology into a sweeping adventure of immortals and magic, of loss and sacrifice, where love vies with honor, dreams are fraught with betrayal, and hope emerges triumphant. Honestly, you could have just put that on the book and I would have been hooked, because there's like 3 other paragraphs talking about the plot and stuff like that. This just seems so unique. I've never read a fantasy book that's inspired by Chinese mythology, so I feel like this is going to be really interesting and I'm really intrigued by this. Next up, we have a book that's been around on Book Talk specifically for like ever. I don't know why I haven't given this a read. I've been wanting to read a book by this author for so long too, so I feel like it's finally time, and I feel like putting it on my 2025 TBR will really motivate me, and that is The Invisible Life of Addie LaRue by V.E. Schwab. I feel like a lot of people in the book space have either read this and absolutely loved it whenever it had its hype, or have read it after it got its hype and just absolutely loved it. I've seen a lot of people be brought to tears by this book too. I don't really know too much about it. All I really know is that it's about this girl named Addie LaRue, and I think that somehow she becomes immortal by making like a deal with somebody. I think like a higher power of some sort, but then for some reason with that deal, nobody ends up remembering her, and that's kind of all I really know. My friend Abby read this too this summer and she absolutely loved it. I've heard that the writing is very like lyrical and beautiful, and it is a little bit slow to start, but this is like more of a fantasy, I think. So a lot of fantasies do start out that way, and this is also a standalone, so I'm excited to read more fantasy standalones. I'm very intrigued in the story, and I feel like it's going to be very beautiful but also very heartbreaking, so we'll see. I feel like heartbreaking is like winter reads for me, so hopefully I will get to that this winter. Next up, we actually have a nonfiction, which is very shocking for me. It is a memoir though, and I love a good memoir, to be honest. Normally I listen to them though, so maybe I'll listen to this, maybe I'll read it physically. We'll just have to wait and see. But I'm going to be reading my first Dolly Alderton book, which is Everything I Know About Love. This is her nonfiction memoir that kind of just talks about everything she knows about love. On the front too, we have some things crossed off like parties, dates, friends, jobs, life. So she's really just giving you all these things that she's learned over her course of however many years she's been alive. I've heard so many people say that this book made them realize they have never had an original thought in their entire life, and I feel like I'm going to relate to this book a lot. I feel like this book is going to be talking about so many things that just so many people go through, and I feel like I'm really going to enjoy it. And I've really been wanting a hard-hitting nonfiction memoir recently. I feel like I need to read a memoir about somebody that I just like really feel like I would relate to. I really want to read Loud by Drew. Oh my gosh, what is her last name? Why can I not think of her last name? I've literally followed her on TikTok for so long. Drew Afwalo. Okay, I didn't even have to look it up. So brainy. I feel like whenever you read a memoir about somebody that you feel like you can relate to on a lot of different things in life, or just about a certain topic that you feel very strongly about, I feel like it's honestly life-changing, and I hope that that book has that effect, and I hope that this book has the same effect as well. If you guys have any good memoirs out there that are talking about like growing up and life in your 20s and stuff like that, any life-changing memoir you got, send them my way, because I feel like I would absolutely love it and just really, really enjoy it. I actually read quite a few memoirs this past year, and I feel like I really enjoyed them, but I think I was just looking for some more that I related to, like I've been saying. So I would love your recs. Next up is a book that I've been putting off for quite a bit. I did just recently read my first sci-fi though, so maybe I'll be a little bit more inclined to pick her up, and that is Renegades by Marissa Meyer. I don't even know how long this has been on my physical TBR, to be completely honest. I know for sure over a year, but how this was explained to me is that it's a trilogy about superheroes, and there's basically like a rebel side and then like kind of like a high and mighty side. It's pretty political. I've also never read a book by Marissa Meyer. I really want to get into her Lunar Chronicles series as well. They're kind of like princess retellings, I believe, but they're like sci-fi princess retellings, which I think is kind of cool. And I love superheroes. I am a big Marvel girly. I feel like I would absolutely eat this one up. Like whenever I was saying earlier, whenever I was talking about witches, literally the whole reason why my love for witches has become a thing again post Bonnie Bennett and the Vampire Diaries, whenever I literally rewatch that show every single year, is because of Miss Wanda Maximoff, aka Scarlet Witch. Okay, I love her to death. And then of course because of Miss Agatha Harkness. I literally love her. Love the actress Katherine Hahn. So again, asking for witchy recs, okay? This is ask number 2. Speaking about the book we're actually talking about, I'm excited. I wanted to get into more sci-fi anyways, and I love superheroes, so I feel like I'm really gonna like this. I think I've just been putting it off because it's just a little bit bigger, and also I've just been in the middle of so many fantasy series. I think since I finally finished Throne of Glass, I'm gonna be able to dive into so many more series and hopefully finish them too. Just because Throne of Glass was very daunting, and I kind of felt like if I was gonna read a fantasy, I should just read Throne of Glass, and that's kind of what I did. Speaking of another fantasy series that I want to start, we have An Ember in the Ashes by Sabaa Tahir. This is a 4-book series that I've been hearing so much about recently. These got new covers, but they've been around for quite a while. And the covers on these kind of remind me of the ACOTAR series. They all have like these very pretty, just like bright, vibrant colors. And then the spines are also very pretty. They're gonna look really pretty on my shelves eventually whenever I finish the series. Also just the book itself, very floppy. Big fan of that. In this one, there's an empire and then there's rebels, so it's a very political based book. I've honestly heard a lot of different things. A lot of people say that the first one is a little bit slow, but then a lot of other people like literally have rated the first one 5 stars, so I have no idea what I'm gonna think about it, but I am really excited to get into it. I've heard nothing but amazing things about the entire series, and a lot of people have been flying through this saying that it's like their favorite series of the year. So I don't know when I will end up getting to this, but I am very, very excited. And then the last book, a part of my 2025 TBR that is actually on my physical TBR currently, is The Wishing Game by Meg Schaefer. This is a literary fiction with magical realism, and I have just realized after reading Ashley Poston's books, I love magical realism. I think it is so beautiful, and I think it's so interesting and just such a fun, quirky, whimsical way to tell a story, and I feel like I'm always just so intrigued in the story. This one specifically, people say this gives them like a little bit of Matilda vibes, and this kind of has a little bit of a fantasy vibe too. There are trials involved, but there's this teacher, she's trying to like adopt this kid, and she's connecting with this kid over reading, and her favorite author has written like their final book, and there's basically like a trial to see who gets to end up reading that book. That's all I really know about it, but I feel like I'm really gonna love it. And also this is just an absolute stunning cover. I think it's also under 300 pages. Yeah, it's just under 300 pages, and I feel like it'll just be a really nice, very immersive, quick read. I feel like a lot of the times magical realism reads bring me out of real life and are very like escapism-esque for me, like fantasy reads are, but sometimes fantasy reads just take a little bit too much brain power, and I feel like more of a literary fiction magical realism moment is kind of like a great in-between where like I have to think, but I don't have to think too much. Like I just kind of like accept what's going on. Now we're gonna be talking talking about books that are already out, but books that I have just heard amazing things about or I've just been really, really wanting to read. The first one is The X-Files by Jessica Joyce. A lot of people have been saying that this gives them like Happy Place vibes, and I think it's like more of like a second chance type romance. I don't really know too much about it. Just whenever people describe it, I feel like I'm really, really gonna love it. And not only that, but if you compare a book to Happy Place, I fear I might be rating it a 5-star. Happy Place is one of my favorite books. It's just so good, and it means so much to me. I've already talked about Happy Place a little bit in this video, if you can't tell that I love it. So many people who have very similar tastes to me really enjoy it too, and I really want to read a book by Jessica Joyce. I have her first book on my TBR, so I'll probably end up reading that first before I read the second one. But I've just heard nothing but great things about her writing, and I'm really excited to have a new favorite romance author, hopefully. Crossing my fingers that I really love her books. Next up, we have Wild Love by Elsie Silver. I really want to read just like the rest of Elsie Silver's work in the new year, honestly, but I'm not going to put all of that on my 2025 TBR because that's just a lot, honestly, and a little overwhelming. So we're going to start with Wild Love by Elsie Silver. I recently finished the Chestnut Spring series. It's right here, and I loved it. I ate it up. Mr. Theo Silva being my favorite man in that whole series. Oh my God, I love him so much. That book also just means a lot to me, and her writing in general, even in the books and the stories and the characters that I didn't care about as much, it's just so bingeable, and it is the perfect little romance book to get me by. Now, Reckless was not a fluffy little cutie little romance book. I mean, it did have its moments, but wow, I mean, like 5-star read. I love that book so much. It was just so incredibly good. So I'm really hoping that her new series and her first series, which is like the Gold Rush Ranch series, I believe, has a book like that as well, but I still love them for like a quirky little fun little palette cleanser. And again, her writing's just so bingeable. I fly through all of her books. And I think the third one is coming out next year. That girl, I don't know. Does she sleep? Because Miss Girl be coming out with so many new books. It's giving Mr. Hamilton. How do you write like you're running out of time, Elsie Silver? Because I swear, I just caught up to Chestnut Springs, and I don't know how y'all be catching up, but hopefully I can do that in the new year. Now we're gonna get into a little bit of Brandon Sanderson. I recently read my first Brandon Sanderson book. I really enjoyed it, and I want to get into his other series. I feel like next year is going to be a big year of Brandon Sanderson for me. The book that I read by him, I think about like a month, 2 months ago, was Skyward, which is a YA series by him. It's not a part of the Cosmere, if you've heard of that, but I really do want to start getting into the books in the Cosmere. So I'm going to start out with Mistborn. That's where a lot of people say to start in general with his books. I know nothing about it. I just know that I'm going to love it because I've really loved his writing in this YA series, and I'm really excited to start it. And then the next one on the list is The Way of Kings, which is the Stormlight Archives series. That's just the first one in the series. My brother-in-law, Duncan, started this series. He's currently on book 2, and literally everything that he said about the series, he just absolutely loved it. He ate it up. These books are pretty long. They're like 900 pages, I believe. So it's like 4 Kingdom of Ashes, and the series isn't even done. So I'm a little bit worried about that, but from what Duncan says, he feels the same way about the writing in The Way of Kings that I feel about the writing in Skyward. Like, just so bingeable and easy to read. It doesn't even feel like you have to think too much or anything like that. And I just know Brandon Sanderson has so many complex things in his books, like just different magic systems. Like, it's just all very unique, and just there's so much going on. And I feel like I'm just absolutely going to love it so much. I feel like he is going to be my new favorite author. Like, I do not doubt that at all. If you have not started your Brandon Sanderson journey, we're going to get into it next year together. No. You and me, we're gonna get into it next year together. And then the last book that is not a new release that is on my list is The Book of Doors. This book is by Gareth Brown. I honestly don't know too much about this. I just know that I've been asking for magical realism recs, and a lot of people recommended me this one. My guess is that it is a book about magical doors. So that's really it about that. I want to read more magical realism books, so there we go. The rest of the books on my list are all the new releases that I'm really, really excited for. If you guys have any other new releases that I don't cover, be sure to leave them in the comments down below so we can all keep up with the new releases together. I haven't even been keeping count with you guys so far. We've gone over 15 books so far. This is going to be the 16th book that I talk about, which is Beg, Borrow, or Steal by Sarah Adams. This one comes out on January 7th. This is the third book in the like When in Rome little interconnected series. Also, Practice Makes Perfect is in that little series. I enjoyed When in Rome. I really enjoyed Practice Makes Perfect. I don't know what it was about that. I think I was just in the perfect mood for it. It was so cute and so cheesy and just so silly. It also talked a little bit about real things, but I don't know. Sarah Adams for me really is just like the perfect author to go to if you're looking for a palate cleanser, honestly. I will say I didn't really enjoy the Rule book by her that came out this year, but I think that's the only book that I've read by her that I haven't really enjoyed that much. Anyways, it's following the 2 main characters in the last 2 books, sisters, POV this time. We're following Emily, and then she's feuding with this fellow teacher that is in her school. It's kind of like an enemies to lovers kind of vibe. I don't really know what's going on with the plot, but they end up being neighbors, like a little bit of forced proximity, but not really. I don't know. Her books are always just kind of like a palate cleanser again for me, so I don't really know too much about it. All I know is that is the first new release of the year that I'm like kind of excited about. The 17th book on my list is Onyx. Oh my god, I literally don't know how to say this word. Onyx Storm? I don't know, by Rebecca Yarros. This comes out on January 21st, and it is the continuation to the Fourth Wing Iron Flame series. I think it's called the Empyrean series. In this series, we are following Miss Violet Sorengale on her way to become a dragon rider. And while this is all happening, there's a lot of political things and things in the background that she doesn't really know about because she's just a student trying to become a dragon rider, which is completely, totally crazy dangerous as well. I will say, I really enjoyed the first one. It was one of the first fantasy books that I ever picked up, and I feel like if you haven't really gotten into fantasy, this would be a great first fantasy book for you. Now reading tons more fantasy, I don't know if I would enjoy it as much if I reread it personally, because whenever I read the second one, I just didn't enjoy it as much, and I feel like it lacked a lot of plot development and just like things going on. It kind of felt like for a while I was reading nothing, and then the ending was like really rushed. The ending was really good, but I don't think that accounts for the rest of the book being good in my personal opinion, and I think I was a little bit extra critical because I just did enjoy the first one so much. In saying that though, I am invested in the series and I do want to keep up with it. I feel like hopefully I will enjoy the next one, but I'm also just not sure where she's gonna take it based off of the second book's ending. So we'll have to see on that. Maybe that'll be in a reading vlog in the new year, but I'm interested to see what I actually think of the third one. Next up, we have Hannah Bonham Young's new release, which is Out of the Woods, and this one comes out on January 28th. I have heard nothing but great things about Hannah Bonham Young's writing, specifically this book right here. So many people that I follow online that have gotten the arc of this book really enjoyed it. A lot of people have already rated it 5 stars too. Okay, I actually decided to look it up and see a little bit of what it's about, and it seems like it's actually about high school sweethearts who are kind of like finding their way back to each other but also working on their own identity. I feel like that sounds very interesting, to be completely honest, because I feel like there's a lot of books about like people like breaking up and then reconnecting, or just people who don't like know each other, but this is a different romance plot, and I think that sounds very interesting. Our 19th book on the TBR is Deep End by Ellie Hazelwood. This one is coming out on February 4th, which is 2 days after my birthday, so I think I'm gonna be reading this on my birthday weekend, which is very exciting. And I believe this is a college sports romance, but it's about swimmers, and I feel like that sounds very interesting. I feel like I'm gonna eat that up, to be honest. It's gonna be a little bit spicy, it's gonna be a little bit steamy, like Ellie Hazelwood books always are, and I just love her books. I love her writing. She's so quirky and fun, and she just writes really good rom-coms. Did I just say wom-coms? Okay. Number 20 is The Rebel Witch by Kristen Cicerelli. This one is coming out on February 18th. Another great book to be coming out in my birthday month. Oh my gosh. I've been so excited about this one since I read The Heartless Hunter, which is right down here. This is, you guessed it from how many times I've talked about witches in this video, a witch fantasy romance book. I loved the first one. It was so good. It's also on Kindle Unlimited. I don't know if it still is, but if it is and you haven't read it yet, read it immediately, especially if you haven't really read any fantasy yet and you want to dip your toes in. This would be a perfect first fantasy. It's very romance heavy. It's dual POV. We're basically following a witch vigilante that poses as like a rich socialite by day and then like saves witches by night. And then her love interest in the book is the guy who's trying to hunt the witch vigilante down. So he's a witch hunter. It's enemies to lovers, a little bit of forbidden romance. And I honestly don't know where we're going with the way that it ended. I think this is just going to be a duology. So I'm really excited to read the rest of this duology, and I'm really interested to see where she goes with it. Guys, I could not even explain how excited I am about this book. I will be reading it the second it comes out, and the second it is in my hands, I will be devouring it. We have Sunrise on the Reaping by Suzanne Collins. This comes out on March 18th. This is another installment in the Hunger Games series. This is a prequel. It's after Songbirds and Snakes, but before the original Hunger Games trilogy, and this is Haymitch's story. I love Haymitch. Woody Harrelson in the movies does Haymitch so well. Haymitch is one of my favorite characters, and I have just heard so much about his games. I feel like during the movies and throughout the books, we get little glimpses of things that have happened, but I really just want to see what happened from his perspective. Seeing a young Haymitch is going to be interesting. I'm so interested to see who they cast in the movie because the movie has already been in the works, so to speak. So I'm really interested to read this book. Suzanne Collins always says she doesn't write a book unless she has something to say, and Miss Girl had something to say, and I am so excited to see what she had to say. Hello everyone, Kay from the future here. I did forget about one very exciting release. It's not going to be on my 25 for 2025, even though I definitely will be reading it in the new year. I just completely forgot forgot to mention it in this video, and I figured since we're talking about tons of new releases that I should mention it now. And if you've been following my channel for a while, you're probably surprised that I even forgot about this one, and it's the third installment in the Powerless series. It is Fearless, and it comes out on April 8th of next year. I love Powerless. I rated it 5 stars. It was so good. It's basically about this world where there are ordinaries and there are elites. Elites have powers and ordinaries are just like basic humans, and ordinaries are exiled from their society. And in these books, you're following our two main characters, Kai and Peyton. It is dual POV, and Kai is a prince and an elite, and he's the king's enforcer. He like keeps everybody in line. And our female main character, Peyton, is an ordinary posing as an elite. Somewhere or another, there end up being these trials, and then the story just kind of goes from there. Going to the second book in the series, I feel like I had really high hopes just because I was so excited. I love the first book so much, and unfortunately it did not measure up. It wasn't really my favorite. I feel like there were a lot of things about it that I didn't really enjoy. So I'm still gonna read this book in the new year. I'm excited for it. I just really don't know how I'm gonna feel about it. Hopefully overall I enjoy it just as much as I enjoyed the first one. Then we have Great Big Beautiful Life by Miss Emily Henry. This one is coming out April 22nd, and it seems like it's about these two writers who are competing to write a book about the same story, and it's set on a little island. And I don't know. Again, don't care. I would literally read anything that this woman writes. I would read her grocery list, as a lot of people say. I'm also going to say it because it's true. The way that she writes about people and the human experience and just love in general is so beautiful and well done, and I need to reread one of her books ASAP. I am so excited for something new from her. Next up, we have another book by another, if I can get it, another one of my favorite authors right here. We have Abby Jimenez's new release, which is Say You'll Remember Me. This comes out April 25th. I don't know why her and Emily Henry's books come out back to back like that, because that's what happened this past year too. Not that I'm complaining, obviously, because I love a new release. I just remember last year I went straight from one to the other, and I feel like I didn't really give each of them their full moment, so I might have to wait a little bit more on the Abby Jimenez release. We'll have to wait and see what I end up doing with that. The first line of the book description is, from the #1 New York Times best-selling author of Just for the Summer comes a new playful, yet deeply emotional contemporary romance. Again, this woman will make me sob, and I will love every second of it. So I'm a little bit confused by the description. Seems like it's about this guy who this girl thinks is perfect, and then he opens his mouth and he's not. So maybe it's kind of giving like what she imagined isn't what he's actually like, and it seems like she's dealing with like a lot of familial issues. Did I say that right? Familial? I don't know. So I think that there's a lot to unpack there and a lot of trauma there. I don't really know. I'm assuming that it's dual POV. I don't know. This honestly didn't give me anything, and I kind of like that it didn't give me anything because I'm going to be going into it a lot more blind, which is how I like it. But I'm excited about it anyways. I need to read her backlist as well this next year. That's another goal of mine because I just absolutely love her writing so much. Okay, my 24th book on the TBR for next year is going to be Sounds Like Love by Ashley Poston. This one comes out on June 17th. I loved The 7-Year Slip. Really enjoyed The Dead Romantics, a novel love story that came out this past year. It's not my favorite, unfortunately. But I love her writing. I feel like anything that has to do with magical realism, I'm really going to enjoy it. The writing just felt almost different in this past one, so I'm really hoping that I enjoy this next one. And again, I love her books because they have a lot of magical realism elements, and that's kind of like most of the plot with them, and I feel like it just adds a lot to the story and the plot of the romance, and also makes them just a lot more unique than a lot of the other romance books that I read. Okay, there's actually a typo in the description, which is kind of weird, but it's basically a musical romance with magical realism. The main character is a songwriter in LA, and then she goes back to her hometown, and that's kind of the gist of it. I love music. I grew up in musical theater and just doing a lot of singing and doing band, all of that kind of stuff, so I feel like I'm really gonna enjoy that one and maybe relate to that one a little bit more than her other books, just because it does involve music, and music has always been a very big part of my life. I don't know though, because of a novel love story, I'm a little nervous, but I'm 2 for 1 with her books right now, so I'm very hopeful that I will enjoy this one as well. Okay, and then the 25th and final book on my 2025 TBR is another new release, and we didn't get a new release from this author this past year, so I'm very excited. It is Totally and Completely Fine by Alyssa Sussman. This is coming out on July 8th. Now, her first book, funny you should ask, I loved that book so much. It was so good. It was one of the books that got me into reading, and I really enjoyed it. Then the book that came out the year after that, I don't even know what that one's called. I know I have it on my bookshelf. It's called Once More with Feeling. Let me just say too, her covers are absolutely stunning. That's why I picked up the first book in general. And the second book cover was absolutely stunning as well. And unfortunately, I just didn't enjoy it as much. Even though it was literally about musical theater, I thought I was going to eat it up. But I'm very hopeful for this one. And this one is about a widowed single mother, actually. And she's actually the sister of one of the guys in Once More with Feeling. And it seems like it's going to be a then and now timeline, which all of of her books are then and now timelines. Lately, I haven't been enjoying then and now timelines as much, but I feel like whenever I first started reading, I absolutely ate them up. But I haven't read one in a while, so I'm really interested to see what I think about this book, and hopefully I enjoy it more than her last release. All right, that was the last book, so that is going to be it for the 25 books on my 2025 TBR. If you guys have any thoughts on these books, any other new releases that I missed, or any books that are on your 2025 TBR, make sure to leave them in the comments down below. If you watched until this far in the video, go ahead and comment down below the star emoji so I know who the real ones are who watched till the end. Don't forget to follow me on all my socials, especially my Goodreads, if you want to keep up with what I'm reading in real time. They are all always linked down below in the description. And that is about it. I love you guys so much. Hope you're having an amazing day. You're enjoying Bookmas so far, and I will see you guys in my next video. Bye guys. Happy holidays. Hello. Microphone, can you hear me? I literally just forgot what I was saying. Oh, I'll take 14 of them right now. I don't care. The next book I chose, her learner, and that is The Secret Life of Addie LaRue. Wait, that's not even what it's called. Maybe I should look it up. Why am I so weird? What the heck was that?